issues as usual with, let me see, Commissioner Sullivan not being able to enter his email.
Well,
So
yeah, but I'm in the meeting, so
you
Oh, there
are?
he is.
Okay.
yeah.
I thought it would be a bad sign if we made you chair and then you didn't show up for the next meeting. That would be a bad message.
Yeah, I'm still having problems with my email, and I'm going to need to get the password reset. I was on hold with IT and didn't get through the hold before the meeting started, but so I'll work on that after the meeting.
Great. So I think, do we have everyone here? I want to see a little check on Mike. Commissioner Malva, welcome. Can you hear us and can you
Thank
speak?
you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
That's great. I think we're just waiting for Commissioner Shah, or are you able to see everybody? I still have some issues and I'm not able to go into the full view, so I can't see you all. That's why I'm in two different phones. So, I mean,
If you're feeling bad about the technical problems, I will tell you SDOT, it took a couple of meetings before Zoom worked. We started on WebEx as well. So it's a learning process.
mm-hmm. I know it's just the learning process for everything. So I don't think we have is Commissioner Shah here, and I'm gonna let you, Commissioner O'Sullivan, are you able to get like the agenda, or do you want me to send it somewhere else since you can't open your email?
Yeah, I've got the agenda.
Great. Let me text. So Logan, that we also have Gary Smith, who is not able to participate. There's Commissioner Shah.
I think I'm good now, by the way, Elsa.
You're good? Great.
Yes, I was promoted to co-host, so that works.
Yes, you guys got the promotion.
I've been here the whole time, by the way, but I had to go out and come back in before anyone could see me and accept all the things. So
great. You may want
yeah.
to change the name in your
Sure,
for
yeah.
your image.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before we start the meeting, this is just a general checkup to make sure that everything works here.
Okay.
I still can't have you guys are gonna have to see two images of me, but let's do this. So Commissioner O'Sullivan, I should let you call the meeting and then go through the agenda. And we have a packed one, but let's try to get to some things. I sent a document, but I sent it only to Commissioner O'Sullivan, but we'll see how it works. Anyhow, I'm gonna let you call the meeting, Commissioner O'Sullivan.
Okay, so what I have on the agenda is first agenda review at 11:50, public comment at 11:55, decision making. So we have three items. We have meeting minutes approval, the districting request for proposal, and then bylaws, and those are the three items that we expect to take most of the meeting. And then a discussion about next meetings, and then adjourning at 1:15. Does anybody want to propose an amendment to the agenda? Does that sound good? Hearing no proposals for an amendment, we'll move forward with that agenda. So the first item after agenda review is public comment. Elsa or Logan, can you tell me whether or not we have any members of the public who've signed up for public comment?
We don't have anybody that signed up.
All right.
Oh, I have a question about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have we just set a precedent that we're going to have public comment at every meeting?
I don't think we have to. Let's see. Ariel, do you have input as to how often I mean, obviously we're going to have significant public comment during the times when we're talking about map drawing. Prior to that, do you have input about whether we're we should have public comment every meeting, whether we're expected to have public comment every meeting. What's the background on that?
I agree that when it comes to those public forums that are spelled out in the charter, those are forums for public comment.
Right.
When it comes to what typical practice is for public meetings for commissions, I'm gonna see what Gary has to say about that, just since he has a little more experience.
Sure, thanks, Ariel. Yeah, it's you're right. Per the charter, there will be public comment that will be required to be accepted when the plan is distributed for community input. But prior to that, whether or not to receive public comment is purely a policy decision for the board or for the commission. It is common practice for many boards and commissions to take public comment, and of course the city council takes public comment, but that is not a legal requirement. Again, the only legal requirement would be those opportunities for public input when the plan is reviewed by the districts.
So also maybe it would be a good idea to put on a future agenda a discussion of what our policy should be with respect to public comment in the meetings prior to actual map discussions. I think Mayor Nichols raises a good point. This is something that we should be thinking about and having a more specific policy on. For today's meeting, it appears that we don't have public comment, so I think we can move on to the decision points. Without objection, we'll move on. The first decision point is previous meeting minutes. And it's possible that I missed this. Did we receive? Right. It also might be an issue with my email and having trouble logging into my email. But do we have copies of all the previous meeting minutes?
I sent the all the minutes for the previous meeting except for the last one. So you should have received all the minutes for the first, second, and third meeting.
Okay, but so we don't have the minutes from last meeting?
No, not from the very last meeting, no.
Okay. Is there either a motion for approval of the first 3 meeting minutes, or is there edits or questions about any of the meeting minutes from the first 3 meetings? Hearing none, I'll take a motion on approval of the meeting minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the first 3 meeting minutes. Any discussion?
And I will abstain. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes from the first 3 meetings indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. All those abstaining.
Aye.
Okay, so we have 4 ayes and 1 abstention on approval of the first 3 meeting minutes. And so Elsa, maybe we'll shoot for having the most recent meeting and today's meeting for approval at the next meeting. Is that right? Okay. Then next item on the agenda, which I expect to be the most significant item, is approval of the request for proposals. And that, let's see, there was a districting master RFP with staff comments sent out on Friday. I know there had been some discussion at the most recent meeting regarding information that we're requesting for the districting master with respect to their experience and ability to with respect to race and social justice. So I guess I'd open it up for comments or information about whether or not the proposal that was sent around on Friday incorporates all the edits that we're hoping for.
Commissioner, if I may say, I put together a document that outlines all the changes, and I'm gonna ask either Logan or Jen here to help me share that document. I think that it will give us, it divides in pieces what we have to agree for the document. And so that way it'll go faster if we just say qualifications, do we agree? Yes. Deliverables, do we agree? Budget and all of it, if that's okay to help us move along.
That sounds good. Ms. Brandon, do you want to review the document with us for us?
I'd be happy to. 1 second, let me find my share screen.
And thank you.
And Elsa, did you have the chart that you wanted to share, or?
It's at the bottom of the. Yes, I can't share right now, but.
Oh, okay. 1 second, then I'm going to have to pull out the different one. Sorry.
I'll send it to you again. If you, maybe we can, is that it? That's the request? But
This is the RFP, but
the chart.
It does not have the chart that you showed me earlier. So
Okay. It's in a different document.
Just.
While you're finding that, there's a request for the agenda from Mayor Nichols. I don't know if I didn't get it by email either.
Okay, I didn't either. No.
Yeah, same boat.
And so Elsa, can you let us know how, because the agenda is not only obviously communicated to the commissioners, but also to the public, is that right? How is the agenda communicated?
Yes, so the agenda is and was sent yesterday for review to the chair and then uploaded and published 24 hours before the meeting on the website. I will
Okay.
make a point to send it to everybody for before the meeting.
That would be, I think, very appropriate.
I will do that.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, we were meant to have it up, but with this technical difficulties right now, I don't think we did. My apologies.
Yeah, well, I got it from the website, so it's been on there.
So I think you're looking at the document on your screen. That's what Jen is sharing. So if we go to the top, let me just walk you through this document that might help us make decisions faster. Jen, do you want to, do you mean going to the top of that document? So it starts, these are the top of the decisions that need to be made, and it includes deciding on meeting time, because this will follow the decision on the timeline for the request for proposals. And so the first document you see, the meetings, the way we had scheduled them, which were Tuesdays from 11:45 to 1:15. There's 3 proposals that I got by email. To move them from 11:30 to 1, to meet from 12 to 1:30, or completely change the day and time of the day. So if you scroll down, that we should decide on that to see who can, and if you can't do it, and if you change the time. This is what you're looking at is what we had decided previously. Then the next piece are the different pieces that the request for proposal has. I'm sorry, this is the yeah, the timeline. This is the timeline of when things need to happen and when we need to meet and when commissioners have tasks not in the meeting. And I sent this to you all in in email. So the decision-making piece includes approving the timeline, approving the scope of work and deliverables, approve the qualifications and the proposal content, as well as the budget, which is the actual amount of what we said. So those are the points to decide. I thought this could be helpful, but I leave it up to you.
Okay, and I think we have a section at the end of the meeting to talk about meeting times, is that right? So right now we're focused on the RFP.
Yes,
Okay.
but I wanted to make
so
sure that you're aware that the timeline also impacts when you have to meet.
So is what you're saying that the RFP itself has certain timeline requirements in it that will affect when the meeting times are? Is that the idea?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, so it sounds like there's a suggestion that we take up meeting times early on to confirm everyone's availability. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I know Commissioner Shaw raised a concern about the 11:45 to 1:15 time slot because of the fact that it goes into 3 different hours. I had proposed moving it from 11:30 to 1 on Tuesdays, so that it only takes up the 11 o'clock hour and the noon hour. And maybe Commissioner Shaw, is that a time frame that would work for you?
It is, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone who is not generally available on Tuesdays between 11:30 and 1?
Yeah, I mean, 11:30 works for me, but it's right at the top tier of a standing meeting. In terms of 12 to 1:30, is that a time that doesn't work for most folks?
So I have hearings that start at 1:30. I would have to drop off early in order to be available for my hearings at 1:30. I can, given 3 or 4 weeks notice, I can certainly change the time of my afternoon hearings, but for the next 4 weeks, I would not be available all the way till 1:30. So Commissioner Malaba, are you, will you normally be available around 11:30 or how does that work for you?
I could make an 11:30, but I'm transitioning out of a standing staff meeting. So maybe on time sometimes.
Okay. And so 11:45 to 1:15 does seem to be a time frame when most of us are available. Commissioner Shaw is, do you have?
Can we look at some other options? I mean,
Yeah, I
it just walks out a lot for a whole year. It doesn't seem when we could potentially, maybe we could keep the 11:45 to 1:15 for the next 2 meetings, and that gives people time to adjust their staff meeting, or is that at all feasible for folks?
So yeah, here's a suggestion. What if we keep 11:45 to 1:15 for the next 4 meetings, and I will work on moving my 1:30 hearing on Tuesdays to later. And so I will generally be, so after the next 4 weeks, I can be available from noon to 1:30.
That would work for me.
That works for me too.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, so what that means is that Tuesday, November 9th, Tuesday, November 16th, and Tuesday, November 30th will be 11:45 to 1:15. Starting on December 7th, we will be meeting noon to 1:30 on Tuesdays. And again, there may be periods of time when we don't have to meet every single week. Obviously, we're needing to meet quite frequently in the beginning to review RFP submissions and hire a districting master. So we expect a lot of meetings early on, but we may have a different schedule later on after these first several months.
That makes sense. So can we let go of the Wednesday holds then?
Yeah, so no Wednesday meetings.
And Elsa, can you remove those from the calendar? I think you were the owner of those meetings.
I have tried. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
And I noticed an item in the chat regarding a question about how to make public comment from Sophia. Is there someone on staff who can respond to that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I think we have the meeting situation figured out. So maybe now we can move on to consideration of the RFP. And I think it was it Ms. Brandon who was going to review that, or Elsa, were you going to review that?
Yes, let me walk through this, and maybe Logan, you can help me put in the chat to respond to Sophia the steps for how to participate.
Will do.
Thank you. Okay, so this is something that Jen is going to help us walk through. You've seen the district master RFP. The one that I sent on Friday had all of your suggestions from the meeting, and also the ones I got by email or by phone last week. And so the timeline, what you're looking at here, has to do with the meeting. So now I made sure that the dates in here reflect on the meetings that you just agree on. So you will have to approve the RFP today, and then the DON will post the RFP on Consultant Connections, and we'll just do outreach for that. It will be open from November 3rd to the 8th, where people can actually email us questions, and we will do our best to respond to them and make them public, the answers as well. And then on November 17, which is the deadline to apply by 5 p.m., we will start organizing the proposals for you. And on November 18, you will get them by email and independently review them, and you will have a score sheet. And I just note Thanksgiving there. Then by November 19th, you will submit scores to staff.
29th.
What's that?
The 29th. You said
Yeah,
19th.
29th, sorry. The 29th, you will submit your scores to us. We'll organize them, and we will meet on November 30th. And you will make a decision for finalists to interview. And I'm anticipating the 6th or the 7th, based on how we did the process for the selecting the 5th commissioner, to make a decision, interview and make a decision by the 7th. And with that timeline, DON will process the contract and execution by December 21st. But officially, the applicant will be selected by December 7th. Do you have a question about this?
Scroll up a little bit. How much time are we giving folks to submit? So
I think it's 2 weeks is what we planned on. Yeah.
is that a typical situation for the city that things are open for a couple weeks?
Things are typically open between two weeks and 4 weeks, depending on the nature of the request.
And maybe just for a little context, Elsa or other commissioners, has there been outreach to potential consultants to encourage potential consultants to prepare for this proposal to be posted?
So there hasn't been a formal outreach because we didn't have an actual request for proposal. But when we were doing outreach for commissioner, people approached us with questions and comments. And so some people approached and we just said, the RFP is going to be coming out, be alert. We have a list of people who have signed up. And so that's the extent of the outreach.
So we expect that there will be multiple submissions, even though we're only giving applicants 2 weeks. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, when I asked King County, they didn't get that many proposals. I think there were 5. I can't really remember, but it's not like it wasn't like a multiple number of proposals, but yes, more than one.
Okay, Commissioner Malabo?
Well, I have a question about the independent review of applications and the scoring, and just wondering when the criteria determination will be and when the commission will get time to be familiar with what's in the scoring criteria.
That's a great question. And typically what we do is we create a scoring matrix that aligns exactly with the qualifications and the scope of work. And so the discussion today about the scope of work and the qualifications, and then there's also a part of the RFP where there is the distribution of weight by scoring that should be part of today's discussion as well.
And it seems to me like we would also be able to spend some time at next week's meeting on going over maybe a more detailed scoring matrix. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'd be happy to to mock something up and get it out to you all so that you can look at it based on what today's discussion reveals.
Great. Ms. Schneier?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a note that we should, when it's, I'm looking at the timeline, November 3 through 8. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just saying on the timeline that's here and also the timeline that's in the RFP itself, that questions and their answers will be posted on the website. I just have a recommendation to add posted and advertised on the, because for the dollar amount, we're required to advertise. And FAS can help us in terms of, the nuts and bolts of how to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, to be clear, when we say posted, we plan to post it on the Consultant Connection, which is the city's site, but also to run it in the Daily Daily Journal of Commerce, which is required for at least 2 days. So we would probably, depending on how quickly, there's usually a 2 o'clock deadline. So either today or tomorrow, it will be sent to Daily Journal of Commerce. And if there are other places that you want to advertise, then we can also do that.
So my recommendation would be then to just double check with FAS about what they do to advertise, and just to make sure that we're all on the same page there.
They use the Daily Journal of Commerce.
Okay, great.
Yep.
We just went through a similar process, and that's why Jen has this very freshly.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions about the timeline before we move on to the substance of the proposal? Okay, it doesn't look like there's any additional questions on the timeline. So should we move on to what's in the RFP itself?
Sure.
And so for this part, I took language and all the suggestions, but if we move to if we go down to, I think the first piece is the scope of work, and want to make sure that we all understand that and that we agree. And if there are questions.
And Ms. Schneider, is your hand still raised or?
Oh, no, let me take that off. Sorry.
And please, anyone just call out if you need me to navigate the document.
So I guess one question that I have about the scope of work, I'm just not familiar with how these processes work in general. Do we have sort of explanation of what the roles will be in terms of scheduling meetings and outreach and thinking about which groups to meet with? Like how much of that is work that is proposed by the districting master? How much of that is work from the Department of Neighborhoods? What is our expectation with that?
Yeah,
Maybe-
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I realized that we needed to have also a meeting where we go over the generals, like responsibilities. All of that is in the handbook, but we have to go through it. The scope of work that we drafted here, which was based on what the state's redistricting master, as well as the King counties. This is very technical. This is the technical work. The actual outreach work and all of that, it's something we have to work on and will be very separate than what the district master.
Commissioner Shaw?
Also in the line of general questions, are there, like, how big of a field of candidates would there be for a districting master? Like, are there many people who have the skill set of the technical piece of it and able to do outreach, or are they mostly firms that would kind of pull it together? I noticed that was one of the questions just on past experience or any of my other commissioners.
Is that something that Brandon has experience with?
I do not, I'm sorry.
One
We-
of the, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Juarez. And I also want to notice that I invited our senior GIS from OPCD, and I was checking in. Jennifer's here. She might be able to answer the technical pieces. But go ahead, Commissioner
No,
Juarez.
please go first and I'll follow up with that.
So,
So I don't really know the answer to that. I think this is a pretty niche piece of work, and I don't believe the contract price is high enough to attract a big firm at all. I think there's maybe 3 people that would be interested in doing this. It's pretty straightforward, and I'm only talking about the technical piece, and that is what people with the technical skills do. They don't do the outreach, so putting those 2 things together would be pretty challenging at this price point. I've talked extensively to King County, who is doing the technical work for the county, kind of as a weird side consulting thing. So the technical work is really straightforward, but I think it's a pretty niche piece of work. That doesn't really answer your question, but.
Well, and just for comparison, my understanding is that so this RFP is a maximum of $60,000, and the King County RFP was a maximum of $50,000. Is that right?
mhm.
And presumably the state RFP was a whole lot more than this.
Not really. Jen, do you
No?
remember?
My memory is that the state was actually advertised as a position rather than a consultant, but it was, I think it was under $50,000. I think it was like $49,999, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay. Commissioner Juarez?
My only comment on that was following up on Commissioner Shaw's saying that, we, through talking with other commissioners, we know that the pool of applicants for this type of a technical job has already been very limited.
Yeah.
And it was something that they were worried about and struggled with. And it does highlight my concern with this document is, the dollar amount seems fairly small considering the very fast pace that we are moving on, despite having a longer runway. And we are asking for outreach. And I think that we are all striving towards that. We've talked about that as our values, I think, in probably each of our own applications to the commission. And I want to be mindful of, like, if we are not going to be expecting the successful person to execute this contract to take on some of that work, I'm not sure we're going to get the results that we want.
And so again, by comparison, King County had a $50,000 RFP and received 5 applicants. So presumably, at least some of the individuals who submitted applications for King County would also be interested in this RFP, I would assume.
Yeah. What I had communicated with the staff from the other commissioners was to share contact information, or for us to share this RFP so that we go directly to those who they had applied before to them.
And maybe some input, is there, so was it, there was a comment that the price point is too low to attract large firms. Do we know what sort of a price point would attract a bigger firm to a project like this?
So I'm gonna speak just from the research we did to get to.
Uh-oh.
Lost her.
Elsa, we lost you.
Elsa, we lost you for a minute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I knew the electricity was going to go off. So based on the research, what we did for the amount of money, the only base we had what it's been done with the state and with the King County. And so it was very clear that what they used the money for was to hire the technical support to do the work. The state had a different amount, and we kind of work on with that model for this proposal to do outreach separately. And so because of the budget, and we were trying to put together a comprehensive budget before the commission started, what we did was consider all of the outreach work separate, which at this point, there's money allocated to do this work through the city, through the Department of Neighborhoods. We can change that. There's a whole proposal that I can bring to you on the next meeting. So how to do this, how to connect the outreach piece with the technical. But at this point, the amount and the contract is just compared to exactly what the state and county did. For outreach purposes, I mean, it's very different. The state has a lot more resources. I think their whole budget was like $1 million for the whole process of the state. And for King County, they couldn't tell me at the time what was allocated because they didn't have it thought out yet. So all I'm telling you is that this is all within the realm of doing it for the first time for the city. You as a commission have the possibility to amend and change the amounts allocated by this proposal that we made from staff. This was like our baseline for everything. And so I am concerned about the timeline and if changing and moving pieces for the RFP, but if you think that there's more research or thing we need to do to change the amount of money, you can do that.
So I'd just like to get an idea from folks who are concerned that $60,000 wouldn't attract a big firm. Would $70,000 or $80,000 attract a big firm? Would $300,000? Like, what is there an estimate of an amount that would attract a larger firm that has both GIS mapping and outreach, significant experience in both areas?
I only would observe that if we don't get any response, then we know that we need to look at that amount. But until then, it seems to me that based on the staff's review of King County in particular, but also the state, it seems like we should be able to attract at least as many respondents as the county did. And I'm not sure why we would want a big firm. I think this is a small commission. Our task is pretty well defined, and working with a smaller firm, I think that's more flexible would be actually advantageous.
I'd concur with that. I think that we can see how this plays, and as Mayor Nichols said, that number will communicate a lot once we get some applicants. Yeah.
So I guess I'm just a little bit confused about the information that we have right now. So it sounded like that with the state's proposal, there was more of a separation between what was expected of someone who was focused on the GIS mapping piece and the outreach piece, but that we're combining those two requirements into the same RFP to the same individual. Is that an accurate summary of, or was all that expected of the same firm or person for the state and the county?
No, for King County, and actually the firm the district master is the service within the King County itself. And so it's not like they hire out any other firm from outside of King County. And so, no, what I was saying is that the outreach piece was not included in either of those proposals for state or the county.
Okay, so that is different in the RFP that we're putting out there as compared to what the state and the county did. So I guess one question that I have about this is, does that mean that we're potentially going to be giving less weight to the ability of a consultant's capacity for outreach, understanding that we as commissioners and the DON staff are going to have a significant portion of that responsibility, and that really the greater weight that we're placing on a districting master is actually the GIS and technical capacity? Or I just want to understand like what that means for us in the context of reviewing proposals.
You're asking the question to staff?
I mean, to other commissioners, to anyone. I just so if what we're doing is different than the county and the state, what does that mean in terms of how we're evaluating the proposals? Commissioner Juarez, did you have some thoughts on that?
Only Only in that when staff mentioned that there's the separate budget for outreach that they had already developed, in addition to what the technical piece is doing, I think that one made me feel better about this, but it also communicates clearly that that responsibility is not going to be weighed as heavily, and that this is purely a technical position, and we are going to be relied a lot more on doing a lot more of that racial equity work, a lot more of the community work. I don't love that, but I get why that is organized in that way. Because I do think it is important for the person who is communicating technical information to be able to translate that appropriately to the right communities in a way that matters. But if this is a choice we're making, it just means DON really has to do some of that lifting for us.
Okay, Ms. Pettyjohn?
Yeah, I would just say that in my reading of the scope real quick here that I see on the screen is that is exactly what you're asking of this technical person, that they will be available to attend the meetings. They will be able to clearly present the alternatives to you and to the communities that you take these out to, but it's not up to this consultant within this proposal to put together that outreach plan in terms of who you're going to talk to and how you're going to schedule your meetings. They're really meant to attend, and you should look at their skills in that ability to communicate it clearly and to have the values that you as a commission would like to express through this redistricting process.
Commissioner Malaba?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the technical expertise focus, we are likely setting ourselves up for success within this very tight timeline, because it's very rare that you get a consultant who has both the technical expertise and the effective outreach expertise all in one same consultancy firm. So I think just focusing it on the technical expertise is probably the best approach.
And so are you happy with the way that is communicated in the current RFP, or do you have some suggestions for changes that will make that more clear?
I am happy with the way it is communicated. I think we should plan to spend more time being clear on the role of the interdepartmental teams on what they will be each focusing on. There's value in having that conversation, and that will provide more clarity as we go forward.
Okay, so acknowledging that we have about another half hour to consider the rest of the RFP, and we still have some other sections to move on to. Are there any other questions or concerns on the work and scope before we move on, Commissioner Shaw?
I agree with what all my commissioners have said. The piece about that EJ said about having someone be able to translate the information, I think is really important. And I wondered if that is captured in the language. I did review this, but I don't remember specifically where that might be.
Elsa, is that something you can point to, or Ms. Brandon?
Yeah, I think what might be helpful is for us to look at the actual qualifications that we're asking for, as well as the application questions themselves, because that's where we can shape what we're asking people to bring out in their narrative. And so here's the qualifications section. With Commissioner Malaba's help, we have added this second bullet that does at least give a little bit more detail on what we meant by racial equity principles. We're asking for strong verbal, research, writing, administrative, and technical skills. And we can make adjustments to that if you want a statement like able to translate technical information into daily parlance or something like that, or for a wide variety of communities. There's also request for the ability to provide visual aids so that it's not just heavy narrative or technical information. There's a desire to, there's an expectation and a deliverable that things will be mapped, that they'll be and they'll be created into presentations that can be used for the public.
Commissioner Shaw, did you have more on that?
I think adding that bullet and the language you used was good. That makes sense to me, and the rest of the RFP seems fine.
And should that be qualifications, or should that be deliverables?
Qualification.
Okay.
It's always fun to write in front of
Right.
I'll check my spelling, I'll check everything. And if anybody has any suggestions, I'm happy to take them to diverse audiences. Something like that.
Okay. Was there, so we had, I think we had reviewed the work and scope portion of the RFP. Did we want to, was there, I think there's a portion between the work and scope and the qualifications.
Yeah, so I think, what I think we really want to be doing is looking, what is the scope of work, which is highly technical, but capable of facilitating what you need as commission to do the kind of outreach and communicate the kind of importance that this whole project has. The second piece is the price, which we've talked about quite a bit. Just to note that there is an additional, Elsa, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like $68,000 for outreach, for public outreach. Maybe I'm pulling that out, and you're on mute, so I'm not sure. But that is, and there was some also budget for translation, interpretation, and other needs for public engagement and outreach. The deliverables are actually pretty important to me, because it looks like you are asking for very soon, upon contract execution, that you would be asking for 4 options or alternative plans that then you can look at, get a sense of what they show, and then have a discussion and ask for some revision based on that discussion. And so and the deliverables include, again, the web ready maps. You can read this as well as I can, but just a narrative that supports the changes. And obviously by the end of October next year, the deliverable is that there will be a final proposed districting plan that you would then be approving.
So I'm going to note that based on the current timeline that we have, that the 3 weeks after signing of the contract is likely to include a number of holidays.
Yes.
And whether or not it makes sense to look at a longer period of time there.
Yeah, Elsa and I talked about this as well. There is the clause within a time frame mutually agreeable to the commission and the districting master. So I'm happy to change it as you wish, if you want me to take out the first clause or rely on that latter one, or put specific, or change the number of weeks.
So this is, sorry for interjecting, this is Ariel Schneider, from the city attorney's office. So for this deliverable, when it's the language for the 4 alternative districting plan options, it's unclear to me, is this the final, is this the plan that under the charter to the districting master submits to the commission? Because if that's the case, the deadline is March 15th. So it's quite a bit more time than 3 weeks. If, however, there's supposed to be some sort of preliminary step before that submission, then perhaps it's something else. But
my understanding is that, and this was language that we have frankly borrowed from the other 2 on the state and the county. As I read it, this looks like the first swipe, the first draft that then gets people thinking, has comments. Then there's a second And then the district master can go back and make and take the information and then revise. So what this is saying is, I think up to 2 alternative district plans based on that. And then that must be provided within 3 weeks following the presentation of when it starts to go public.
Okay, so it looks like this is kind of, I'm looking at so you are giving October 31st, 2022. So I'm just trying to think of where that March 15th, it looks like, I mean, and there's nothing in the charter that says the districting master can't be involved after that, the submission of a districting plan on March 15th. So it's up to you guys. You can contract with the districting master to have them continue to be involved in revisions. And I think that makes a lot of sense up until the final submission. But I'm just trying to think of where, if the deadline for putting in for the districting master submitting by the charter, submitting their plan is March 15th, you can always opt to contract to make that deadline sooner than that. I'm just thinking that you have a little bit more wiggle room than 3 weeks.
Yeah, I guess my thought would be to make that 6 weeks. Just and one of the reasons I'm concerned is that if there's a consultant who's interested in putting in a proposal, but is has a break planned during this period, they may feel that they wouldn't have the capacity to comply with this. What do other commissioners have ideas about that initial 3-week period?
I concur with the 6 weeks period. I think it gives folks enough time during a holiday to be able to put together a plan.
Commissioner Juarez or Commissioner Nichols, any input on that initial period? Or Commissioner Shaw?
No, I think that's fine.
Any objection to amending that to the plans shall be provided within 6 weeks after signing this contract? Hearing no objections, maybe we can make that change. Are there other pieces of the deliverables, Ms. Brandon, that you wanted us to focus on?
I wanted you to recognize that we do have, upon the presentation of plans, that we want the district master to provide an explicit description of how the principles of racial equity and representation have been integrated. That is in response to the conversation you had at the last meeting. The rest, as far as I understand it, is pretty clear, and I don't think there's anything else that I needed to bring out.
And maybe a question to Ms. Schneier. Do you think that the March 15th deadline needs to be articulated anywhere in the deliverables?
You're on mute, Ariel.
I think that I think that's you. I mean, if you are contracting to have an earlier deliverable date, you're well within the, you're honoring the charter provisions as long as you're doing it before the March 15th date. So I don't, I think it's if you're deciding to use the March 15th date, then it makes sense to put it into the RFP, or if you are hammering out the details of your contract with the applicant, it might be something to put in at that point. But so my answer is it's up to you. If you're truly having the districting master submit within 6 weeks of signing the contract, I'm trying to think of, the only thing I can see being a problem is No, I don't think that would be a problem. I'm just trying to count. I mean, as long as they're signing in 2021, there's plenty of time within 6 weeks before March 15th. So my answer is, I don't think it's necessary. You might prefer it just to be able to give the districting master some clarity about why you want things when you want them, but it's not required by the charter.
And I suppose hopefully individuals who submit proposals will also be reading the charter.
I would certainly hope so. And if that question does come up, you can stress that that's what the charter requires, but you're free to request something sooner than that.
Right, got it. And any other questions or comments on the deliverables?
I'll just comment on the racial equity piece. I think staff has done an amazing job of integrating that in how it's going to be shown in deliverables and upon presentation for each of the plans. I think that's likely the most effective way that the application of those principles can be demonstrated. And I'm also very satisfied with the language that's now in the qualifications, because I think that really gets us to a place where we speak to the competence of each of the technical consultants we bring on board to be racial equity proficient.
Yeah, thank you to Commissioner Malaba for making those suggestions, and thank you to staff for integrating those. That's great. So the next section, qualifications. Ms. Brandon, did you want to review, point to anything that we should be focusing on?
And the qualifications are highly technical, and so they have gone through the demographer, and other folks have looked at them. I cannot claim to understand what a lot of these technical skills are, but they are taken again from other RFPs. I think since we just added the ability to translate, I think the communication piece is key. One thing to note is that when you do say minimum qualifications, if someone submits something that does not include a minimum qualification, they won't be eligible. And so we did pass these through OPCD's demographer a couple times just to make sure that this all of these skills would be necessary in order to carry this work out.
And did Ms. Pettyjohn want to speak to the specific technical requirements?
They look pretty good to me. The expertise in Arcgis Online bullet, that's pretty specific. If it's kind of a go, no go. I think the reason that was probably put in there is that is the online platform that the city uses. So presumably that would be why that's in there, because that's what we're going to have to use.
Jennifer, would you recommend that go under desired qualifications instead then?
I mean, it probably needs to be up there just given the world that we're in of virtual meetings. And, you know, I don't see us, well, I don't know, like a room full of people with paper maps. I'm not sure it's going to be a possibility. So I think it should stay there. It is pretty specific, although I would get any GIS consultant would have those skills. So I think it's okay. One thing I would add, and this is my experience in working with consultants that build online applications for us, is whoever is organizing this for you all, IT has very high standards for anybody who might be developing applications within our platform. And the applicant needs to know what those are. So if you can link to, so in other words, if we want the consultant to build digital maps in our platform, they have to go through a security review by IT. And all of that should be upfront, because I have run into that issue with some of my consultants, that's a little bit of a surprise to them.
Okay.
That's not necessarily the qualification, but I think maybe that's more of a contract thing, but it is something that they should know.
Yeah, I think I I agree that we should definitely put that in the contract. Elsa, I know that you had folks from IT look at this as well.
Yes, I was gonna say there was a part of the IT, the interdepartmental team. They included OPCV and IT, and a few people from IT who review this and give us their thumbs up.
And so is there anything that we could put into desired qualifications that would give potential applicants a heads up about what they would need to do security wise in order to build on the city's system? Or would it, I mean, probably prior work with the city would be one way, but I mean, that wouldn't be the only. Are there any other ways to ensure that applicants are aware of what the city is likely to, what the IT department is likely to require?
Another thing that could come up through this is that if the applicant has their own online platform that they could build it on and use, so that they don't need to be within our environment, you know, basically on our servers. So I'm not sure how the work is being envisioned on how that would be executed. Like, is it all on the consultant to do? If this is getting very technical, I apologize. It is something that comes up a lot.
And given how far along both the state and the county are, do we have a sense of whether the state and the county are building this out on the resources of those entities, or whether the consultants have platforms in themselves that they're building on?
So Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that the state is using its own, and King County is using their system.
Yes, I would presume the county is, since they were the successful applicant.
Right. Yeah. So the county doesn't really have any issues in that respect.
Yeah,
But that
right.
state, because I've looked at the state website a couple of times, and it looks like it might. It looked like it might be a separate entity, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it is. It is a Draw Washington, and then they have like their own site and email address and everything.
Well, and since this is a request for proposal, maybe that's just part of the proposal, right? And then you cross that bridge when you come to it,
Right.
depending on what they propose. Yeah.
So it does sound to me that there's a couple issues that we would want to research as staff a little bit more during the period when applications are being submitted, so that when we move from you'll deliberate, you'll choose a finalist, the offer will be extended, and then we go into contract. And the way to make that process go really quickly is to essentially know that the application, the proposal that they submitted actually maps really closely to the scope of work that you're asking them to do. So if there are other issues like this that arise, I want to make sure that we as staff are flagging them, and that we get more clarity about how that affects the scope of work, so that when we go into negotiations with contract, we don't have a lot of time spent on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And just again, a quick question to Ms. Pettyjohn. Can you help me understand, as someone who's not super familiar with these platforms, what Arcgis Online and Arcgis Hub are?
So the GIS vendor that almost everybody in the world uses is called ESRI, and they provide an online platform that does a lot of different things. It can build websites, it builds dashboards, it has all kinds of applications that you can build on the platform. And that's called Arcgis Online. It's basically a cloud service that they allow us to use. And what that means is the city of Seattle as an organization has a URL on that cloud. A consultant can also have a URL on that cloud, and that's called their organization. So there's two ways for a successful applicant to propose, well, maybe more, but two of the obvious ways are that they would build within our organization on our URL, whatever it is you guys want. So they would create the maps and the applications and do the website or whatever. Or they can do that within their own organization, have their own URL, and then that is what would get shared out to the public, right? So then it's just think of it as like a cloud space, essentially.
And is that different than ArcGIS Hub?
Hub is just one of the applications within ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online is the big concept of the cloud, and then Hub is a essentially it's a website generator / community outreach application that runs in online.
Okay, Commissioner Malaba.
Yeah, and if they use their own, what does that mean for our cost in terms of paying the consultant? Does that change anything?
I can't really speak to that. In my experience with other consultants that have their own organization, there's no cost involved. They don't pass those costs on to us, but I suppose that could be part of the proposal because they will be essentially hosting for some period of time the maps and the applications that you're engaging with the public. And that would be perhaps a cost that they might charge back to you. I don't know how they would quantify that, but it's possible.
Thanks for that, Cardi.
All right, we have about 15 minutes left. Are there any additional questions in the qualifications section before we move on to the proposal content requirements?
So there's a comment in the chat, Commissioner.
Is this Sophia from a public comment?
Yes.
Yeah, so I know that some proposals have for redistricting commissions have included a requirement that the consultant allow members of the public to sort of play around and make their own maps. And I think the commenter here is referring to Dave's Redistricting, a website that sort of provides a platform for people to create their own redistricting maps. Ms. Pettyjohn, are you familiar with this at all, or is there anyone else at the staff level who's familiar with this?
I'm familiar with it as a commissioner and having used Dave's tools in the past. I think that, you know, I don't think it's something that rises to maybe the necessity of putting it in this document. The successful applicant to do later.
It looks to me like the comment would is basically getting at providing it as open data. So a plan would be provided within an open data platform so that people could grab it and use it in other applications, third-party applications. And whether, yeah, that's, I'm not sure it rises to being in the RFP either.
All right, Ms. Brandon, did you want to take us through the proposal content requirements and let us know what we might want to focus on?
So I think the key things here are to think about when you're reviewing these proposals, what it is that you need and how you want it to be provided to you so that you can gauge the applicant's competence, and so that gets into both the review criteria, which the different weight that again will feed into the score sheet. But let's first go to the actual application, the narrative part of the application itself. So this is simply a cover sheet. The narrative, as we have it right now, is pretty broad, but we are asking them, asking them to limit themselves to 5 pages and to comment on the 4 primary things, or the approach, the competencies, and if they're using the team, then who it is, the availability because of the schedule, and the cost. And so, so this is where I would say, you know, the importance of both the skills, but also this sense of, because you're asking for a proposal, you're asking for, you know, their approach, the way, in some ways, their philosophy, or just at least how they apply their technical skills to this job.
So I guess one question that I have is, originally this document was written as a request for qualifications, and it seems like maybe the way that we're weighting things and articulating what we're expecting is maybe more geared to a request for qualifications as opposed to a request for proposals. So when we're it might help me to understand where, like, how we weight how the applicants are going to articulate their the deliverables, or what they intend to provide as deliverables, or how they intend to provide those.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's a good point. I think we talked last week about, is this a request for proposals? Is this a request for qualifications? Given that it's so technical, you definitely need to know that they have the qualifications. I think the reason that I think we came to coming back to proposal was because that's a way that you can, especially not having experience, having done this before, this does give you an idea of how someone would approach something. And that and this is also, again, where we've asked them to integrate the principles of racial equity and representation, which is a little more difficult to tease out, I would say, under an RFQ. And so that this just simply gives you a bit more information. And I think it helps educate you about what you can expect. And so I mean, if you think about it as hiring somebody, you want to know, obviously, that they have the skills and the competencies. You want to know that they're going to be available on your schedule, that they can do it within your budget. And then, you know, this first bullet is really about, you know, how they use the skills that they have for this particular task.
Commissioners, I have one note that I'm just spotting. If under availability, it looks like the timeline was not updated for our timeline, because it says September, October, November, and December of 2022. And as you know, our districting plan is due November 2022, in November.
Right,
so let's update that, move it back a month.
Yep. Thank you.
So maybe we could say August, September, if the commissioners agree.
Well, so I guess I have a question about that, because it sounded earlier in the meeting we were indicating that we were expecting a high level of availability from the districting master between now and March 15th, and there was a question as to how involved they were going to be after March 15th. It would be useful for me to know what the expectations are after March 15th, and particularly as we finalize the proposal.
Ariel, can you comment on that?
I mean, that is something for the commissioners to decide how the degree to which they want the districting master to be available. The districting master, the language of the charter says the districting master is responsible for submitting that draft of the plan on March 15th. And then after that, there's the process of hearing feedback from the community. And the commission may submit revisions based on that feedback. So it's really put into the commission's hands at that point. Now, the commission can always decide that they want more participation from the districting master and that they want the districting master to be the one making those revisions. And so that really is something for you guys to decide.
It does sound to me though that there are at least there is a heavy period, expectation for a heavy period of work in the first quarter of 2022.
That's correct. Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
And I would recommend that we
from
actually
the time that they're hired, really from the time that they sign the contract until they submit that draft. So I think it makes sense to put that in availability.
Is there, okay, and let me pose it this way. Is there any objection from any of the commissioners to adding in the availability section clarity that we need significant engagement in the first quarter of 2022?
No.
All right. So it seems like there's consensus on that. Once again, time check, we have about 7 minutes left. I think we're getting close to reviewing the entire RFP. Are there any other significant pieces we should be looking at, Ms. Brandon?
So just to note that we are asking for 2 references. So I'd want to know that you do indeed want that. And so otherwise I could take that away. And then I think if we can spend the rest of the time at least addressing the percentage of the weight across the different components, I think that could be useful. We can go into more detail on the scoring matrix next week, but this frankly is really broad. And so, oops, excuse me.
So Ms. Brennan, do you have suggestions of
well, I think what I would say is that we should probably have the technical requirements, the skills, as it's separate, a separate item for scoring.
Enter your meeting ID.
And I'm sorry I don't, because this is really the technical expertise is really outside of my knowledge base, so I apologize, but
Ms. Pettyjohn, do you have any suggestions about how we might weight technical expertise in the review criteria?
So from what you showed up above, it's just, I wasn't quite following. It was like 80%. I didn't quite understand how, was there any proposal for it, or is it just kind of open? Like, how would we do this?
It's really quite open.
Okay.
And so perhaps the best thing for us to do, given the time, is to remove that part of it, knowing that we're expecting people to answer these questions, and that then we can address the scoring more. I don't believe we are required to publish any kind of scoring or weight description of how proposals are being weighed. So given the time and the fact that we're all still really new at this, perhaps it's best to just take away that section.
And yeah, and also I guess given that this is a public meeting process, so presumably anybody who's submitting a proposal will have an opportunity to both review this meeting and review the next several meetings while we discuss our review criteria. They will have access to that information if they want it. So I guess given that, it sounds like Ms. Brandon has proposed that we remove the review criteria section from the RFP. Are there any objections or concerns about that proposal? Hearing none, it sounds like we can just, and am I capturing that correctly, Ms. Brandon, that we're just going to remove
Yeah,
the
I would say
entire
that's,
review criteria?
I'm sorry. I would say that's correct. What I would add is, add on to that is that, again, there is going to be that open period where we will publish, where people can submit questions and we will publish answers. And so that can also be another opportunity for that to be very clearly communicated.
Okay. So it sounds like we have consensus on removing the review criteria portion of the RFP. Any other questions or concerns before we move to maybe a vote on the RFP as a whole? All right, it sounds to me like we're reaching consensus right about on time. So the chair would now consider a motion for adoption of the RFP as amended in today's meeting.
I move that the commission adopts the RFP as amended.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Any further discussion before we vote?
So that motion assumes that we're authorizing staff to send out the RFP as we've modified it.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, that's 5 votes in favor, no nays, no abstentions. We have the RFP adopted. The last item on our agenda was meeting times, which we've already covered. So let me, is there anything else for the good of the order?
I just want to make a note and suggest to commissioners to look at the handbook where we discuss a lot of the outreach pieces. There's like on page 22, there's a comprehensive budget for outreach. It would be great to discuss and for you to look at that because it might get lost.
And I'll note, yeah, I'll get to you in Mayor Nichols in just a minute. I'll note that actually the bylaws was another piece of the agenda that we did not get to this time, given that it's 1:15. I don't think we have we won't have an opportunity today to discuss the bylaws. We'll definitely want to review the bylaws and have a vote on adoption of the bylaws next meeting. But I don't think we have time for that today. Mayor Nichols?
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, when is our next meeting and when will commissioners have the agenda?
So our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, November 9th, between 11:45 and 1:15 p.m. And so also, when should we expect the agenda?
The latest will be 24 hours before, but we should be able to have it next week. Oh no, I'm sorry, this week, at the end of the week, Friday. Yep, sir.
Great.
Thank you.
And I don't remember how this works in the bylaws. Do we need an official motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day.